standard post-19th century Western classical music, there's this idea of purity. Purity of, say for instance, tones, so that you typically want to have all of your instruments tuned precisely to the same frequencies and everything, so that they're, in as perfect unison as possible. And it's kind of the opposite with gamelan. In fact, the instruments are intentionally tuned slightly off from each other, so it gives it more shimmer, basically. I mean, when a gong is a really great example of this. You play a gong, and the reason the gong sounds like the entire universe is that it has a bunch of very complex frequencies that are all sounding at the same time. Instead of all the various non-European musics that are out there, gamelan, particularly Balinese, but also Javanese gamelan, has been one of the more influential in Western classical music history from about the middle of the 19th century on. In the 19th century, you see certain composers, particularly in France, people like Claude Debussy, who actually tried to imitate the gamelan on the piano. A typical piece of music might have these sorts of, I'm going to take that off. In Debussy's music, when he's trying to emulate the sound of the gamelan, he reduces the notes on the piano to scales that are very similar to gamelan scales. For instance, just the black Cs on the piano. Just using this sort of sound. So I didn't really know what to expect. I did a little bit of reading beforehand. I would actually say, though, out of all of that, what was the most stunning aesthetic experience was hearing the call to prayer from various locations. And there's one thing we did was just go up onto some ridge, mountain area where we could see a bunch of rice terraces, and we just had some tea, and around, I don't remember exactly what time they do, I think it's like 5 o'clock, they had the evening call to prayer. Yeah. But you hear, maybe 5 different people doing the call to prayer slightly out of time from completely different locations and different keys, and it just sounds amazing. And it's all really distant. And I think one of the things about Christina, me sort of shadowing Christina for the trip, is that I got to see a lot of things that I wouldn't have either been able to or wouldn't have had the courage to seek out myself. Like for one thing, hanging out in her husband's village, which was a pretty cool experience. Right. And it was kind of cool because I just sort of hung out and saw them go about their daily business. I think on Independence Day there was a little performance that a bunch of the school children put on in the village. Okay. All sorts of dances and prizes and stuff, and that was kind of cool. So those are the sorts of things that I wouldn't have had access to without Christina, which is a pretty significant part of the trip. Muslim culture. I did actually go to one kind of really interesting place, which was the burial ground for a number of sultans in Georgia. It's called Imogiri. And I went there in the middle of the night. And actually, so I had a free day, and so I took a trip to Borobudur. Okay. And then also to there's a volcano that's right by Joja. And then after both of those, I still had a little bit of time, and so I asked the driver if we could go to Imogiri, and he was like, "Why do you want to go there?" But it was actually a really cool experience. The problem was that I guess they only open it maybe like one morning per week or something like that. But nonetheless, one of the cool things about that place is that there's this enormous staircase that you have to walk up that, I don't know how many steps, it's probably like 600 steps or something. It was a really remarkable experience. I really felt something. I don't know. I guess you could describe it as a spiritual presence or something, but there was definitely something very remarkable about walking up those steps and having the wind come through the trees while I was going up there. And that's another place that I wouldn't have gone to except for Christina having mentioned it, because it's not like a typical tourist location or anything.